1969. Despite numerous tips over these years and law enforcement's efforts to locate her, several sleuths, media people, blogs, and everything else that's out there, unfortunately, all of these efforts remained unsuccessful. We knew she fled the country, and this case became cold until recently. Thanks to a courageous tip from a concerned individual in Alberta, Canada. Excuse me, she was believed in Alberta, Canada. She was believed to be shielded from law enforcement and until she passed away from natural causes. This case was wrapped up with a press release planned, and we learned that analyst Lee from Kansas City had been working on the tip too. It was at that time that we came together to discuss the leads, to discuss the fact that Sharon Kinney was actually dead in Canada. Without this vital tip, this case would have remained unsolved, and without the whereabouts of one of the most elusive serial killers ever being known. A few final notes, we're going to have some handouts. At the end of this presentation today. We'll also have time for questions at the end. Aliases that she went by really prefer to have anonymity. They want this case behind them. They want it closed, and they want it done. Therefore, without a respect, their names will not be released today. In addition, there's going to be some investigative techniques that we can't discuss. Please feel free to ask questions, and if we can't discuss it, we'll be glad to fill it in and let you know. Dustin Love, who will provide a detailed overview of what he knows about the Sharon Kinney case, her criminal activities, and the investigative steps taken. After that, you'll hear from Director Christina Ludwig from the TIPS hotline, and she will discuss the role of TIPS hotline and how it facilitates tips like this one and their success. And after, you'll hear from Prosecutor Melissa Johnson, who will discuss the significance of the tips. At the very last, I'll read a short statement from Sharon Kinney's family, personal. Sergeant Love, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Captain Montgomery. Before I start, I'd like to send out a few thanks to people that made this possible. Like Captain Montgomery said, this went through 3 different countries. Georgia Ian Kane, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Corporal Marge Sharp, FBI Specialists Elizabeth Small and Nicole Cover, and Tabor, Alberta Police Chief Graham Abella. The Missouri Information Analysis Center was very instrumental in helping us, and Assistant Prosecutors Jordan Long, as well as, I'm sorry, I'm missing his name. Jordan Long was involved with it. Their teamwork coming together to help us was something to look at, and we was very valuable to us. In 2018, I worked for then Sergeant Montgomery, now Captain Montgomery, as a member of the Judicial Protection Unit. Big part of my life. I took an interest in the case. While discussing this case with my current squad in 2024, Deputy Buddy Cool, he was part of investigations before becoming part of Judicial Protection. And he still received tips from the TIPS hotline, and he remembered a tip coming out in December of 23, and that's kind of what spurred our reopening of the investigation. I'm going to give you a kind of a timeline of how things happened, starting in 1960, clear up till today. On March 19th, 1960, at 17:30 hours, deputies responded to a shooting at 1700. This was in unincorporated Jackson County and fall under the jurisdiction of the sheriff. Sharon Kinney reported hearing a gunshot in the bathroom while she was in the bathroom, and found her husband, James A. Kinney, shot in the back of the head in their bedroom. She claimed that their 2.5-year-old daughter had been playing with a firearm and accidentally shot her father in the back of his home. On May 26, 1960, Patricia Jones, which was a resident of Independence, was reported missing by her husband, Walter Jones. It was later discovered that Walter Jones had an affair with Sharon. Sharon had claimed that she was pregnant and had told Walter that they were, and that she wanted him to break it with. Of course, he said no and said that their relationship was over. Sharon then duped Patricia Jones into meeting with her, and that was the last time Patricia Jones was seen alive. The next day, there was a large-scale search throughout the Independence area, and she was not located. That evening, what is modern, and then calling the sheriff's office. He led the sheriff's office out to the Phelps Road location, and while being questioned out there by investigators, he quickly admits that he was not there alone and that Sharon was with him. On May 31st, 1960, Sharon was arrested for the murders of Patricia Jones. 1960, Sharon was arrested for the murders of Patricia Jones and Walter Jones, or M's trial, and that she needed a new trial. The Missouri State Supreme Court agreed trial, and that she needed a new trial. The Missouri State Supreme Court agreed and released her on bond pending a new trial on a $25,000 bond. In September of '64, Sharon fled to Mexico with a new boyfriend, and on September 18th, 1964, she shot. We're going to fast forward to December 21st. We're going to fast forward to December 21st, 2023. We received the tip that was referred to earlier that Sharon had been living under an assumed name in Alberta, Canada, and that's kind of where we started. Through countless hours of investigating natural causes in about Alberta, Canada, on January 21st, 2022. This officially closes this case, but we do welcome any and all information concerning Sharon Kinney, especially her whereabouts from 1969 to 1979. You can remain anonymous and contact the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, the Kansas City Police Department, or the TIPS hotline at 811.
If I could figure out if this information could be confirmed. So obviously the first thing is to look into who Sharon Kinney was. And so we began digging into all sorts of online documents, birth, marriage, obituary, contact information. One of the first things were the similarities between the two. First off, the appearance. We did interview a retired independent sergeant. Who did confirm the photos of Deidre were that. Seen Sharon on multiple occasions. And then they were both born in Independence. The dates of birth were exactly 1 year apart. Their mother's maiden name were shown to be the same with Heflon. They had a brother's name that was Eugene, and then they both had a skin discoloration. The fact that she escaped Mexico and then Deidre got married in LA in February of '70. So we developed a timeline which we put all the shootings and trials, arrests, a link chart. So in terms of travel, we kind of documented this in terms of where she was. Obviously Independence. She lived briefly in Provo, Utah.
About the TIPS hotline that got this started. And we always hear here in local news, if you have any information, if you see something, say something, report it to the TIPS hotline. And I think a lot of us go numb to that. We just get accustomed to hearing that, but we don't really get to see what goes on behind the scenes and for families, whether it's the victim's family or the suspect's family who wants to get away from this. And today, Director Ludwig is going to discuss that, a little bit about the behind the scenes of the TIPS hotline and this specific tip. Ma'am?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you very much for involving us in the press conference, because our media partners are so important to how well we are able to get everything out there to the people. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program. The Greater Kansas City Crime Stopper program was established in 1982. So this program is tried and true. We have not a tipster's identity be revealed. So what the message I'm trying to get out there is, if you continue to push out there that we are an anonymous way to submit information, you will be 100% anonymous. We get the information from you, and we are basically the messengers. We send that information. These hardworking detectives have to prove that information to be true. Okay? So it doesn't matter how insignificant you think that your information is. It could be just the detail that these detectives need to solve these cases, as it was in this case. And it doesn't matter how old the cases are. We've had a lot of tips that have solved so many cases, but we have a lot of cases that aren't solved yet. And we really need the community's help. So if you would like to learn more about our program or contact me, you can find me at kccrimestoppers.com. If you have any information about any case, anything, we serve 9 counties in Kansas and Missouri. Please call the TIPS hotline. Thank you.
And brand new prosecutor.
Correct. Of both the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and the Kansas City Police Department, specifically Sergeant Dustin Love and Analyst Darren Lee. For the past about 3.5 years, I've had the pleasure to sit in KCPD's weekly shoot review and see firsthand in real time the amazing work that the entire analyst team performs, and I know that I can confidently say the same for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. On behalf of the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, I do want to advise the community that as of yesterday, we have dismissed all pending charges against Sharon, and those cases are now closed, and we are ready to hopefully move on behalf of her family, her loved ones, and this community. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time speaking today. I appreciate that. Very important messages, especially regarding the TIPS hotline. Throughout this investigation, Sergeant Love has worked very closely with Sharon Kinney's family. And you heard a little bit today about some of the aliases that she had. We didn't talk about all of them. As you can imagine, she probably has some that we don't know about. But in her history, not only did she start a family under the name Sharon Kinney, she also started a family under several other names. Not only are the victims' families affected by this, but so are her families, many of which want anonymity in these cases. They don't want to be associated with the bad things that she did, and at this point, they want to move on. The sleuths, the bloggers, all the people that are doing their own stories, as you can imagine, knock on doors and try and get more information, and they want to move past it. So we're asking that you be respectful with them. For the most part, most of them have been very cooperative with us. However, again, they request anonymity and privacy as they move forward. Sergeant Love was able to get a small statement from the Kinney family, and now I'd like to share it. It reads, "On behalf of the Kinney family, we would like to state how happy we are that this chapter in our family history can be closed. Sharon was a woman that never faced the consequences of her actions, leaving them for her children to deal with. She caused great harm without thought or remorse. Hopefully this closure will allow the family a chance to heal from her traumatic legacy." Signed, the spokesman for the Kinney family, dated 1/28/25. Now, over the years, Sharon Kinney's criminal activities have been the subject of numerous articles. There's books, there's podcasts. We hope that bringing closure to this case today can provide a sense of resolution, not only for the friends and family of the innocent victims she murdered, but also those loved ones that were affected by her actions under the name of Sharon Kinney, Jeanette Puglisi, and Deidre Glavis. Thank you again for coming today. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions, if anyone has any for the panel. Ma'am?
Why do you call her a serial killer?
The definition under the FBI is 2 or more. And at this particular time, we know she killed 2 in Jackson County. We also know she killed 1 in Mexico and possibly there is more. So under definition, she is technically a serial killer.
Okay. And do we have any information about her other two deceased husbands, or is that also maybe kind of part of it? Just kind of information.
I don't know exactly, to be quite honest with you, and I think I would rather leave that to original investigators and the reports. I will tell you that we do have some information from the Canadian authorities. We know that she's been married several times. So at this point, especially those years that Sergeant Love mentioned that are missing from California, we'll be reaching out to California authorities as well. And we know that once this hits, we certainly may get more information on some other activities that may come to fruition.
Okay. I keep asking more, okay. Case closed as of May 31st, 2024. Why 8 months later now?
That's a really good question. As you can imagine, there's a lot of loose ends that you have to do behind the scenes. And we wanted to make sure that we had all of those tied up in a neat little bow. We planned on doing a press release, and we had started some of those, just hadn't gotten around to it. And at one point, some information got leaked. We are where we are here today. And the truth is, it really doesn't matter when that information is out, because she can't hurt anyone, right? So we're thankful in that particular case that we are where we are today. We're very appreciative of all the work that's been done behind the scenes. And we just want to make sure that everyone understands the importance moving forward, not only in this case, but any other case, that if you see something, say something.
I have a question for Prosecutor Johnson, if that's okay. Just if Sharon Kinney were alive and brought back here, what kind of charges would she be facing, or what would you charge her with?
Candidly, this is my 4th week on the job. So I have not seen the entirety of the available evidence. I could suspect that it would be some category of murder, but I can't definitively say if it would be in the 1st degree or 2nd degree or voluntary manslaughter, etc. But I can say that we would prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike?
Yes, you said Sergeant Love had made contact with Sharon's family.
Correct.
As part of the investigation. How much was that contact necessary to be able to close this case and help identify her? If you're able to.
Do you want to comment on that? Sure. Very good question. And I think, as with any case, it's important to contact family, right? But I'll let Sergeant Love disclose how he did that.
Initially, I thought maybe we would be able to compare DNA from her children that are still alive, the Kinney children, as well as the Glavis son that's still alive. Turns out that's not how mitochondrial DNA works. So initially, we had contacted one of her children in Georgia and worked with the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, did get a DNA sample with the hopes that we would compare that, but it just didn't work out. That way, the technology isn't quite there. We talked to the FBI at quite length about the possibility of that. And we weren't able to obtain a DNA sample from her son anyway. So, but that's how we started. We used genealogy to kind of track that down. So, anything else?
So really, it was the fingerprints that were the big thing here as far as.
Yes.
The two sides.
So, and I should say that luck was definitely on our side. In Canada, they fingerprint deceased people when they're being processed by the funeral homes. Sometimes that happens under a contract with a business. We just really lucked out that those fingerprints were taken, and it really lucked out that that data is stored at that company's headquarters in Lee Summit, Missouri. So it did make its way back home 64 years later.
How were they working with them? Were they just like, well, okay, we'll do anything? Like, what was that response like with the funeral home in Canada?
We did have to serve a subpoena, an investigative subpoena, and that's why I acknowledged Assistant Prosecutor Jordan Logan. She helped me with this investigative subpoena. We were required by that, and I think it was probably the right move to go ahead and do that legally, as opposed to getting it under consent. I think it was smart to get the subpoena instead. Anything
There's
else?
some people who think that maybe she has evaded justice for 65 years, 64 years, however long. She didn't really evade it. You know, she was caught, she was captured, she was in front of the jury. What would you kind of say to those people, like, you know, she was out on bond? Like, I don't, it just seems so wild to think that someone named in like 2+ murders would.
So to answer your question, I think that if this happened today, this no way happens. She's not gonna be released on bond from prison. That would not happen today. I think our justice system has came a long ways in 65 years. So I would like to say that just wouldn't happen today. And I would love nothing more to have one day to sit across the table from her. You know, I would like to pick her brain on something. And I'm sure that there's numerous law enforcement officers throughout the nation that would love to talk to her. So, yeah, it's unfortunate we couldn't catch her when she was alive. She was really good at what she did. She hid really well. It's unfortunate we did. I've already extended my apologies to both sides of the family that we weren't able to capture her alive. It just so happens that someone had that tip and was not willing to release it until after her death. So,
Have you had contact with her victims' family members, and
yes.
what does that look like?
They're the same as the Kenny side. They're glad that it's done. Walter is still alive. He has children. So I've talked to him and his children. They're glad to move past it. And it's been traumatic to their family as well, of course, because their mother died and his wife died. So, I mean, it is some major closure for them as well.
And as for the sheriff's office, I can't imagine maybe people who are involved in the case still work there, but how does it mean just knowing that finally the sheriff's office is put together?
It's huge for us. I mean, it's definitely probably one of the bigger cases in our history, if not the biggest. As far as I can tell, there's not anybody alive still that was involved with the initial investigation. I do know that there are some children of those people that were involved. They've been very involved in the case throughout the years. As I researched this case, I would come across their names and things. So, but yeah, I wish we could have got it done before that, but this is the way the cards were dealt. So.
You say it's one of the biggest. I'm just wondering if there's a way to quantify that in any way? How many emails, how many phone calls, things like that, if there are records of that, of truly how much communication has gone back and forth between so many agents?
When I say the biggest, I would say it's the most publicized case. There's been books written that's been on unsolved mysteries, things like that. So, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you again to those of you that spoke today, and thank you again for the members of the media that have shown up. If you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or to the captain. My biggest message out here is, again, the thing that we have been saying this entire time is how important that information is. Because again, we would not have been here today if it wasn't for that tip. I can't stress that enough. And the same goes for any future case. The prosecutor's job, law enforcement's job, all of our jobs are hard enough. And if we can just get that small piece of information given to us that at least gets that ball rolling, that's the tip. So if you can, bring it upon yourself. If you think of some information, if you see something, please just say something. Yes, ma'am.
So, I know that like you're eligible for that reward if it leads to an arrest of someone or a suspect or someone. Was this individual maybe eligible for anything with this huge thing that they're out, like, did?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm like, no one got arrested, but like, I mean, this was big.
Absolutely. Like you said, that payment sometimes can be the catalyst. We hope it's just because they want to do the right thing. And again, that information doesn't have to be to the TIPS hotline, doesn't have to be anonymous, but certainly if you don't want to be involved and you want to do it anonymously, the Greater Kansas City Crime Stoppers, the TIPS hotline is a perfect way to go. Okay? Captain McKenna, anything else? Any other questions? Thank you again for coming.